Said, boy, you nice. Boy, you nice.
So I guess I'll give my opinion on the Texas shooting. My resolve has not changed. It's unfortunate what happened, but I recognize an unwillingness to do what is actually effective. I've already said, I said in my last video when it came to the Buffalo, that soft targets have to be hardened. Plain and simple. You know, you have a country where people have access to firearms, which is, a right that I strongly believe in. On top of the fact that people are not going to give up that right. The people who don't own firearms and run around with the stupid mentality that Jesus is going to protect me, or I don't need guns, or no civilized society, needs guns, and, all that nonsense, they don't have anything to lose. The people who went and chose to own a firearm, those people have a completely different mentality. They're the just in case some shit happens type of people. They're the people that, technically speaking, you really want on your team when, shit really goes left. And they're not going to just give it up and then like everybody else, all the people who don't own firearms, which is the majority of this country, are going to be comforted by the idea that, Big Daddy government's going to keep us safe. This is why guns, they don't appeal to women. Women, they don't want to. And somebody that I actually argue with all the time, they said, you know what, I'm gonna make an argument, and I said, what? They said, and you're really gonna like this. They treat government like God, right? Right. So I'm an atheist. I tell people this is a bunch of bullshit. It would be a better world if people treated each other better, but they don't really want to do that, right? And then people are just like, oh, if there's no God, then, if I don't have this entity in the sky that's looking out for every aspect of my life, oh, what would I do? Heavens to Betsy, right? That's what they do. And that's how a lot of people, especially women, feel about government. Okay? The whole idea of firearms ownership and that you're on your own when some shit actually goes down and you are the first responder to your own situation, that freaks a lot of people out. They don't want to think that. They don't want to believe that. They somehow think that there's a armed police officer behind every blade of grass and every tree and light pole, and that's not the case. The idea that they are on their own and have to handle their own business scares them, terrifies them. And it's the same thing that applies if you say there is no God and God is not overwatching you and you're not special. They start freaking out. They want to feel that somebody's in control. And the government uses that to, the government's advantage. One of the things that they don't want is they don't want and they don't like the idea of people having this concept in their head that, I am my own first responder. I am going to basically self-actualize and exercise my own beliefs and my own agency to defend my life if my life is threatened. People who think like that are very, very, very difficult to control, which is why you don't see this right being exercised around the world. It blows my mind when liberals make these type of arguments. No other civilized nation in the world, and you see what China's doing. You see what they're doing to the Uyghurs. You see what they're doing in Hong Kong, right? You see what the al-Assad's father, did to the Sunni Muslims in the city of, what was it, Hamas, I think it was called, right? Purge their asses. And again, when it comes to black people, I'm looking at y'all like y'all retarded. I think for a lot of black people, the title or the label of being Christian just means that you're pussy. Just say that you're pussy. That's all that there is to it. As much as black people go around, bitching about racism and they're out to get us and everything, and then these same people want to act like there's always some moral argument that they're trying to make, that they're still going to leave black people out there with nothing but their ass and defenseless. all the purges that took place in this country, from Tulsa to Rosewood to Elaine, Arkansas, you know what I'm saying, to what's the other one, Wilmington, North Carolina, and black people got the audacity to talk about what needs to be, how we need to disarm. And there's like this bastard relationship between Christianity and the Democratic Party. Black people, Christianity, and the Democratic Party. Everything they do, it has nothing to do with empowering black people. It's nothing to do with that. It's always about, subscribing to the Democrat agenda, but not a black agenda. That's why I can't wait until all these black olders die. Like, I really can't wait till they all die, so that we can start to have some real conversations. But I realize, you're going to have all these Bible thumping black people, that run around, with this nonsense, and a large population of women that are going to, we don't want to be dependent on you. We don't want to be dependent on, the idea that we're really out here by ourselves. We want big white zaddy government to do something and protect us and make us feel safe. And this is the same big white zaddy government that they'll turn around 5 minutes later and say, oh, they're racist and the cops are racist and Joe Biden, we need a bill because we live in the system of white supremacy. So black people are just confused. Black people, they really just don't need to be listened to because they're simple-minded. The majority of black people are simple-minded. They're idiots. Up there just talking nonsense. They're more concerned about winning some Christian principled moral argument than they are about the reality of the world in which we live in. It's like them people that sit like bitches that think a fucking restraining order actually does something. You know what I mean? Like, they think that, he's not gonna show up. I got this piece of paper that says he can't be around me. Yeah, but if he does show up, fuck you gonna do about it? You see what I'm saying? What are you going to do about it? Yeah, that piece of paper says that after he shows up, if he doesn't freaking kill your ass or beat you to a bloody pulp, that he will be arrested and he will be charged. But in the meantime, what does that piece of paper really mean? Nothing. It doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? So, a lot of people really have a childish, sophomoric attitude when it comes to self-defense and safety and all that, right? And then let's go to the white side. The white side, massive amounts of entitlement, okay? White people ain't giving shit up. Those white people that storm the Capitol, Trump supporters, whatever you want to say, and they don't even really have to be Trump supporters. They're not going to give that shit up. Aside from the fact that they're always in fear of black people and some sort of retribution for slavery, that black people are just sitting around seething, waiting for the payback, right? So white people ain't gonna give it up off of the strength of that. You may have some suburban soccer moms, who needs a gun, right? Because they live so high up in the ivory tower that certain shit doesn't affect them. But see, the thing is these mass shootings, like I said before, they freak people out. Because when it comes to, and the media loves to do this all the time. The left media loves to do this all the time. They love to conflate mass shootings with inner city gang-related violence. They love to. And those two things have two different solutions. Economic opportunities are not suddenly going to make these mass shooters stop mass shooting. It will curtail a ton of the violence in the black community. But as it pertains to mass shooting, it ain't really going to do much about that. Now, when it comes to the mass shooting, I don't know why, I have ideas, but I don't know why, the violence of mass shooting goes on like it does. I really don't know. I really, really don't know. And the reason I say I don't know is because, okay, how I want to say this. When I say I don't know, I don't have definitive answers. I have my ideas, my concepts, which are things like the way that, I saw a thumbnail. They had a thumbnail of, what the fuck was it? It was a thumbnail of the shooter. And I'm like, why is this your fucking thumbnail? You know what I'm saying? Why are you showing this guy's face? The media loves to go out there. They love to show people's faces. They make these guys infamous, give them notoriety, all this shit. This is what the media does. And I'm like, yeah, these guys, they want attention, and you're giving it to them. You know, it's the same way that guys are bitching now about women and how they making money on social media and OnlyFans and everything else and Instagram, but yet they're sitting there and they're hitting the like button and they're throwing money and they're paying shit and they're doing all type of dumb shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're always doing, you know, this type of crap. The other thing, and what's the other thing that they do in the media, you know, all the time, talking, making people infamous. Oh, the other aspect is, you know, the whole attack on masculinity. I talked about that before. I talked about ways in which you have to have things channeled, you know, for young men so that they can be, you know, productive and have a positive male identity. That's being eroded. Fathers not being in the home is being eroded. Nobody wants to have a real conversation about that. Nobody wants to talk about court reform, with the child custody reform and divorce reform and everything, so that fathers are more involved in the lives of their children. This isn't always the case. It's not always the case. But I'm saying, you know, whether it's the fathers not having access to the children and not being there, or whether it's the fact that you have women that go out here and have babies with men who aren't going to be there, whatever the case may be, I'm saying there is a displacement of the father figure in today's society that didn't exist, you know, 50, 60, 70 years ago, that exists today. And who do you see committing all these crimes? Young men, right? Then people ask another question, what's going to lead me into hardening the schools. And I do think that some of it is cultural. And there is a sense of this sort of, you know, entitlement, because people want to talk about, like, this guy's Hispanic and all his name is Ramos and everything. And, you know, like, people got to face the fact, like, what are Hispanic people really? Like, when you really look at a lot of these Hispanic people, a lot of them are majority white genetically. So people don't want to get into the biology and the genetics of it, and whether there's a white pathology or not. But I'm saying, as a rule, you don't really see other groups doing this. Now, meaning in America, you don't see it. You know, yeah, you got the Virginia Tech shooter. Yeah, you got, you know, the DC snipers. But on average, why don't we see a whole bunch of, you know, black males or Asian males, you know, doing this type of stuff, or ethnically, racially ambiguous Latinos doing this sort of stuff? We don't see that. Now, the Asian community, you know, again, patriarchal, strong father figures, that might be a reason. The black community and the racially ambiguous Latino community, you know, that live next to each other, the barrio and the ghetto, you know, as it pertains to them, you know, the close-knit community of struggle and being, you know, embracing that environment. Because I remember when Michael Jai White went on Vlad, he talked about this, about the beauty of poverty is it brings you so much closer together, because that's all you have. Where there might be some downfalls and some deficiency when it comes to people who come from, you know, these sort of spread out suburban environments and whatnot, you know, connected to even some of the mental health issues that we see with, you know, the pandemic, when people don't have those sort of healthy social interactions. And especially at a time, you got to think, you know, the last 2 years, these guys didn't get to go to prom. They didn't get to go to, you know, these sorts of, you know, like the senior trip, all that stuff during the pandemic. You know, they didn't get to experience, you know, all of that. How much that connects to mental health, I don't know. Now, moving on from that aspect of the racial and the cultural component, we got to look at, and actually I didn't finish my point about the hardening, the freaking white people and their entitlement, but I'm saying, like, they're not going to give shit up. And I want to say this about the way that the Democrats are saying, oh, we're going to take everybody's firearms away and all this other nonsense. The Democrats totally miscalculate the fact that, yes, the top brass of government is in full support of them. They're the elitist and everything else. But your grassroots, everyday law enforcement, especially in these rural areas and these predominantly white areas, law enforcement doesn't necessarily support that shit like that. These sort of, I don't know what you would call it, the bluegrass type of white people. They don't. The law enforcement, the troops on the ground, so to speak, they don't support this type of stuff. So when it comes to them enforcing these whatever gun control that they would try to pass, again, complete differences in this country. See, like I said before, when it comes to gun control, when it comes to white people, it's like, yeah, you can control the niggas with gun control, but you can't control us. Again, that's that white entitlement, right? We're Americans, and blah, 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 and it's my God-given right, and blah, blah, blah. From my cold dead hands, give me liberty or give me death, da, 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 da. Government is too big, boogaloo, all this shit, right? They say all this crap. All the people that stormed the Capitol, Proud Boys, yada, yada, yada. As soon as you get into, the inner city and black people and them being armed, control those niggas, stop and frisk. The problem is they not complying, da 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 da. But yet they'll walk around with a T-shirt that says, will not comply with anything that they deem unconstitutional. Like that's like the new thing. It's kind of like how feminists do. Anything that they don't like, they'll say, that's misogyny, right? Everything that they don't like is toxic masculinity and misogyny. And on the far right, everything that they don't like is unconstitutional. That's unconstitutional. You know what I'm saying? And I personally, I think the courts have done a real piss poor job of really laying out what is and what isn't, especially on the gun issue, which is about to change with Clarence Thomas actually coming down and speaking on the shit. Which irritates me with black people because they always want to, Clarence Thomas, he's a coon, he's this, he's that, and I'm like, this is a black man that's up there that is the only thing making it so that basically white people can't come in and just purge black people all willy-nilly. You know what I mean? If white people in this country wanted to say, black people, report to your slavery reinstitution pods tomorrow, right? What would black people be able to do? Not a goddamn thing. Y'all think y'all be out there, with nothing but hands and fist, or feet and fist, and y'all be good. Like it just, I don't get black people on that front. But anyway, getting into the hardening the schools, I've already said this before. There hasn't been a mass shooting in a predominantly black school since forever. Not that I can think of. Are there shots around the school? Yeah, sure there are. You know what I mean? Has somebody brought a gun into the school and shot somebody that they're beefing with? Sure they are. But this whole, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to kill everybody, black people don't do that shit. Now, again, we could say that that's cultural, or we could also argue the fact that pretty much every urban black school has freaking metal detectors in it. These schools need to be fortified. Plain and simple. Now, this Ramos guy, he got chased into the school. And then the cops decided to make a perimeter around the school as opposed to going in there and taking him out. Once he's in the school, once he's in a building, it is go time. There is no we sit on the outside and we just simply wait. But again, nobody's going to want to talk about the bitch-assness of these police officers that time and time again not only reinforce their inability to protect the public, but their unwillingness to protect the public. Because your ass needs to be going in there, and they don't go in there. So that's the story about him going in there. People talk about this shit with people being 18 and whether they should be able to buy guns. And also, you can buy a long gun at 18. You can't buy a handgun at 18. You know what I mean? And Texas, I think they reversed some law or something like that. I don't know what's going on. I know that California had the Constitution. They tried to raise it to 21, and it got smacked down by the Supreme Court out there, in the Ninth Circuit Court out there in California. Can't do that. You can't do that. Now, the funny thing is 18 is a funny age to be. Oh, you can't drink, right? But I believe you can smoke, and you can, what else can you do? Right, you can enter into contracts, you can get married, at 16, hell, you can be emancipated from your parents, 17, with the permission of your parents, you can join the military, 18, you can join the military, go off the country and die, you can do all this stuff, but, you can't own a firearm. Okay, so what do you do with a guy that at 18, let's say due to circumstances, got shitty-ass parents, he moves out, gets a job, marries another 18, 19-year-old girl, they have kids, he's starting a family, and then he's got to wait until he's 21 to buy a firearm to protect his family? Yeah, good luck trying to make that argument. Good luck trying to make that argument. On the flip side, though, when we look at alcohol, that was changed. Why was that changed? The states used to have, used to be able to drive from Jersey into Pennsylvania or whatever, because the age limit for drinking was all, all the people back in the 70s. That's what they used to do. And then they had too many DUI accidents. So they created laws to bring it all together and say, hey, the drinking age got to be 21. Aside from the fact of, 18-year-olds in high school, 14-year-old freshmen, right? 18-year-old seniors, 14-year-old freshmen. And we know that, that goes on all the time. 18-year-olds banging 14-year-olds is a thing. If you were a 14-year-old freshman female and you were dating a senior, he was 18 and you were 14, and you lost your virginity at 14 or 15. So I'm saying, we could bring up the alcohol argument, right? But this is the part that gets me about the hardening the schools, right? Because I watched a video. The white guy, he made a video, it was like 4 years ago. It only had 218 views. I actually liked the video. I was the third person to like the video, and I left a comment. And he basically said that the schools need to be hardened, which I totally agree, but I never heard anybody like flesh it out. But he was talking about basically 2 sets of revolving doors, that if you walk in, there's a metal detector, and if it detects too much metal, then the doors lock, and now you're stuck between 2 revolving doors that are basically bulletproof glass. I'm like, good idea. And then he said it would be flanked by emergency doors on the side, and the emergency doors in the case of a fire or some other emergency or something like that, those doors would open up, and then people would be able to run out of the building, right? So that was one scenario. But here's the part that gets me, right? So January 6th happened. All the Trump people, they stormed the Capitol. Shortly after that, even though the Republicans wanted to deny it, and it wasn't really an attack, and they were just, half-assing it, which they were. It was half-assed because they weren't armed. Like, if they were really going to have a coup and overthrow the government, I'm like, all of them should have been armed, but they half-assed it. So now the government, the Capitol building, is going to be further reinforced. The Congress or the Senate, whoever, Congress passed a $1.9 billion hardening referendum, whatever you want to call it, to upgrade the defense of the Capitol. They're going to have retractable fences and shit like that, like literally like, DEFCON 3 or whatever. And they're going to hit the button and all these metal fences are going to come up around the Capitol, to prevent people from getting inside the Capitol. Plus whatever other fortifications they have. 1.9 billion. Oh yeah, you're going to know that shit's going to be like Fort Knox. They're going to have some serious heavy metal doors that are going to freaking seal shut. They're going to have all type of stuff in there. Okay? But here's my question. Why is it the federal government can do that when it comes to the Capitol building, but not when it comes to the schools all around America? Right? You think that anybody can just go, like, let's say somebody wanted to harm the Obama sisters, right? You think that when they were going to school that anybody would have been able to just run up in that building and spray that bitch up? No. Absolutely not. The Bush twins? No. Trump's kids? You think when they go to the little whatever politician school that they go to that anybody can run up in there? No. Why? Because there's armed security there. Right? They know what the response is going to be, right? Nobody's even thought to attempt it because it simply can't be done. There's all type of Secret Service agents all over the place. But here's another, I'll go even deeper. I'll add another factor to it. And then you'll see just how unwilling the left is to even present something like this. Because what they really want is they want people to be disarmed. They want the American people to be disarmed. Let's look at the $33 billion. Black people can't get reparations, but, Ukraine, hey, you need $33 billion. Hey, we got you. We got you. Yeah, what else you need? Right? We're going to arm you to the teeth to fight Putin, to fight Russia. Right? Okay, if you can give $33 billion, you got $1.9 billion for the Capitol building. You got $33 billion for Ukraine to fight Russia. Where's the money for hardening these schools, putting armed guards in front of all these schools so that this doesn't happen? Where's the money for that? all of a sudden, we don't have no money. We don't have no money now. You see, it's bullshit. The goal is to disarm the American population. They could easily pass a bill. I don't even think Republicans will be opposed to that. We're going to pass a $45 billion bill to harden all of U.S. schools. All U.S. schools must have a active duty police officer or some sort of guard with a rifle, not a handgun. Okay, and they must stand out there for 8 hours of that, whatever that school day is, or maybe it's not 8 hours, whatever hours. Okay, however many hours of that school day, they got to be out there. They got to be at all games. They got to be at all events. And that's the reality. That is the world that we live in. You know what I'm saying? And it's not because we have too many guns. People used to go ask anybody over the age of 60 and ask them, especially in more rural areas, they'll tell you, ask them about the rack in the back seat that you could see in the window of people's pickup trucks and how they would go hunting after school. Ask them about that. Ask them about, you couldn't do that now. Put a shotgun or any type of gun on a rack and where you could see it in the back seat, sitting right behind them. You know, like those old pickup trucks where there was only 2 seats and then you had a glass window immediately behind you. They used to have a rack that they would put their rifle there or their shotgun, whatever it is. You couldn't do that today. You know, and I do believe that there's a lot of, there's a psychosis going on with people, due to social media, the instantaneous thing, shit being instantaneous, the fact that like anything now can just like happen and everybody knows about it instantaneously. That changes everything. It's just like the dating market. The dating market has completely changed. If a chick is halfway decent, if she's an 8 and above, she can create a Instagram, a freaking what's the other shit? Instagram, OnlyFans. I'm looking at 2 young women right now that are about to blow the fuck up, which are the what are they called? The Learman twins. They got all that ass too. They're 2 biracial light-skinned chicks. They got all this ass. I mean, just ridiculous ass. They working out, all this stuff. You know what I mean? Got views like crazy. And they're only, 18, 17, 18, something like that. I think they're 18. Blowing up like crazy. That didn't exist before. Nobody would have known about these chicks other than the people in the local town. Now, all of a sudden, you got socialites on social media. Oh, what do you do for a living? I just look pretty. Like, that's it. Literally, they don't have to do shit. So now you got, back in the 80s, like how Cap's uncle said, a drug dealer will make an ass out of a working man. Hell, a pretty bitch today will make an ass out of a working man. Just off of the strength of being pretty and posting shit of her being pretty on social media. Oh, how much do you make? Oh, well, I make, $200,000 a year. Oh, how much do you make? Oh, I make $1.2 million. I have 3.7 million followers on TikTok. Like, how the fuck do you compete with that? How do you compete with that? All a bitch has to do is be an 8 and work out. If she's at least an 8 and works out, she can have a ton of views. Just a ton of fucking views. And making all type of money. And she will be stashing that money. And once she's made the money, she's always going to have more money than the majority of working men out here. Always. Wait a minute. You made $2 million when you were 22? You know what I mean? How much money do you think she's going to have nothing when she's 35? You see what I'm saying? So social media has changed everything. So and again, the psychologist, the freaking the psychiatrist, all these people have not examined this. All of this is new. It's like the shit with vape and how people were getting basically ARDs by smoking vape. And it's like people are like, oh, well, it's not cigarettes. Well, it's like, well, we don't have it's new technology. We don't have the shit, the history to be able to examine and say, oh, this is causing this. There's a relationship between this and this. Same thing with cell phones. What happens if when we're all, 80 years old, all of us suddenly get brain cancer and then they link it back to cell phone use? Then what? You know what I mean? Like, nobody right now, phones, you can have a phone, talk on the phone all day, but what about all those frequencies and radio waves and everything else? And you got this antenna right next to your head, and you're listening to it, and then all of a sudden, you start having migraines, and then you go, and you get a CT, and they say you have a growth in your brain. And then again, 50 years from now, or whatever, or 30, 40 years from now, they go and they discover, cell phones are tied to brain cancer. So the same thing goes for what we're seeing now. A lot of this shit is new, and nobody's going to recognize, that this is connected to this, and, the human psyche. Again, Christians just, this is morally irreprehensible, and this is evil, and that oversimplification shit. Then see, the problem is the guns. No, the guns are just easy to target. White supremacists around. See, the problem is the niggas. You know what I mean? No, that's just it's easy shit to target. They don't want to talk about, the system of white supremacy and everything that they did that led black people to, crime, how the gang started with actually fighting off, a racist white supremacists that would run around, harass black people, or the police that were running around harassing black people, like the spooks out there in California. You know what I'm saying? That's how the gangs, the Bloods and the Crips originally started. And the funny thing is that video that I just posted about the Somalians, same situation. They came there in the 90s and the white boys was fucking with them. And they formed gangs. And then the gangs turned in on themselves. And now they out there shooting each other just the same as African Americans. Again, environment, conditions, lack of economic opportunities and whatnot. All the women are all over there covered in hijabs and whatnot. But yet the men, they look like us. And I'm like, why are you running the streets? Like, how come you ain't out here trying to be a doctor and a lawyer and all this other? Why are you out there running in the streets? Right? Different culture, but same environment. And yet we get the same outcome. Right? And I said the same thing about the Pakistanis in the UK and versus Pakistanis in America. You go to UK, you'll see Pakistanis in prison. You'll see Pakistanis in the narco economy, right? But you come to the U.S., Pakistanis, they're a part of the model minority group. When the last time you seen a Pakistani dude get arrested, locked up, in jail, have a record? Like, you never see that shit. But in the UK, you see that shit all the time. Again, same culture, different environments. It's the way people are being treated and whatnot. But anyway, that's my whole spiel on just the psychology of all this bullshit. But I'm just saying, people aren't examining this shit properly. My whole thing is, if you're going to have access, people have access to firearms, because at the end of the day, and people need to understand this, the Second Amendment is not really about your right to be able to defend yourself. The Second Amendment states that the government cannot infringe on that right. That's what the Second Amendment says. It's where at the bottom, shall not be infringed. The other thing I keep hearing black people regurgitate and spew is this whole, what about the militia? And it says there's a well-regulated militia. First off, the people are a part of the militia. Second off, again, when it came to, what was it? Was it Plessy versus Ferguson? One of the reasons why they didn't want to give black people, recognize them as citizens, was because the Second Amendment would extend to them. Okay, or I think it was the Dred Scott case, or was it Plessy versus Ferguson? I always get those two confused. But anyway, one of those cases, I think it was Judge Tanny or whatever, he was like, if we make them citizens, well, Negroes will be able to carry firearms and vote and go to and fro, with those firearms, all this shit, right? So black people being chattel slavery were never considered a part of any militia. We were chattel labor. But yet, as soon as we would be recognized as citizens, then all of a sudden that right to be able to own firearms would be extended to us, which demonstrates that the Second Amendment has nothing to do with a militia. A militia, a well-regulated militia, has nothing to do with a militia. In other words, you don't need to be a part of a militia in order to engage in the Second Amendment. That's what I'm saying. The Second Amendment is an individual right. And the government cannot take that right away. Shall not be infringed. Mind you, the fact that it was the second one. It was the Second Amendment after freedom of speech. Again, you're talking about a group of white men that were trying to run away from another group of white men and didn't want to be controlled. Didn't want to have anybody, to tell them what to do. That is what you're dealing with. Okay? And I'm saying a lot of these privileges, or whatever you want to call it, rights, privileges, all these ideas, these concepts, black people have used to great effectiveness in terms of us challenging the system. You see, we hold white society to what they hold up as their, man-made Bible, which is the Constitution. We hold them to their word. You know what I mean? They're like, nigger, you got a point. You know what I'm saying? We hold them to that. So, that's what people need to understand about, the Second Amendment and many of these other rights. I don't understand black people, especially the black people who have failed us miserably. This older generation, y'all went through the shit. They created the 1968 gun laws to deny your access to firearms. And because you didn't deal with the situation economically that the black community is faced with, you do have a lot of crime in your community. And because you were given a whole bunch of cushy jobs in government positions and things like that, now all of a sudden, when we're faced with, these sort of existential threats coming from the system of white supremacy, yet again, you tell your grandkids that they should be out there with nothing but their ass. I don't understand it. The Second Amendment should be black people should be exercising the Second Amendment more than anybody. More than anybody. So to me, there's just a complete breakdown of how we think and process, being an American citizen, and also, being black in this country, and how we need to move and navigate and do things that are in our own collective best interest. I don't know why we don't seem to understand that. When I see shit that goes down with white people, I don't immediately go, oh, I don't. I look at it from the dynamic of, again, they don't consider us when shit goes down. Why are we considering them when shit goes down? But I understand they're dominant members of the society. Certain things that I see that would be beneficial to black people, I will co-sign. Even if they're on the other side of the aisle, I'll co-sign. I'm like, nah, we could use that. I'm like, yeah, we support you. We fully support you in that. Right? But a lot of black people get caught up, and sometimes I don't blame them, because a lot of the white people do some sneaky shit where it'll be like, oh, well, yeah, we want to pass this law, but the way that we're going to apply it is going to be uniquely different. Right? So depending on the conditions of what race is interacting with who, we're going to change it. We're going to switch it up. So you're protected, and again, people argue this about stand your ground. Stand your ground as a law is not a problem. The fact that if you are in a place that you're supposed to be, you have every right to be, and somebody comes to attack you, you have no duty to retreat. That should be universally co-signed. But the issue that black people have is, how it's not applied equally, right? But the issue that I see is they bring up shit, they try to conflate shit that it doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. It doesn't make sense, because they'll sit there and they'll try to use examples like Marissa Alexander. I'm like, not a good example. She went out, she left the house, went to her car, retrieved the gun, and went back in the house. People trying to make these sort of false equivalents. Same thing with the Daryl Brooks. White people right now, they're trying to conflate Daryl Brooks with the white boy that went and shot up the Tops supermarket in Buffalo. I went and I looked up the Daryl Brooks. Daryl Brooks is all type of fucked up. You know what I mean? It's just because he made some pro-black statements or anti-white statements. White people are like, see, he's a black supremacist and all this other shit. Any black person that's been arrested as much as he is about, as much as he has been by white police, is not going to like white police. Is not, excuse me, is not going to like white people very much, and isn't going to like police very much, who tend to be white, who are the ones that arrest him. I can safely say that 90% of black people feel some type of way about white people in this country. You goddamn right. But again, the false equivalence that there's some sort of black supremacy. No, like I said before, black people's response to white racism is the response. It's not some it didn't come out of the ether of black supremacy, but white supremacists always try to make that bullshit ass argument. No, white people just think that they are the center of the universe and that they have this solipsistic, view of the world that everybody else, needs to, grovel at their feet. They're the ones that run around with this, I am a Super Saiyan and you're just what's his name? Who's the weakest person in Dragon Ball Z? I can't think who the weakest person is. Anyway, moving forward. But I'm saying that's how they think about and process the shit. What was I gonna say? Hold on, I'm losing my train of thought. Oh yeah, Darrell Brooks. So getting back to Darrell Brooks, the motherfucker was diagnosed with bipolar depressive disorder at age, I think, 11 or 12. He pulled a gun on his nephew. He's been charged numerous times with domestic violence. He's a registered sex offender and has been arrested multiple times for not registering as a sex offender when he has relocated. So the cops were looking for him for that. And what else? What other issues did he have? It was just a Christmas list of shit. You might as well play the Star Wars music and have his criminal record just scrolling like the damn introduction to Star Wars. You know what I mean? Because he just had multiple run-ins with the law, and the only reason he was out of prison or out of jail was because they couldn't promise him a speedy trial because of COVID. So if he was locked up like he should have been locked up, then he wouldn't have had the opportunity to run that parade of old white people over. Right? Mind you, the fact that the whole reason that even took place was because the police were chasing him. Somebody called the police on him. He was having an issue, again, more issues with his family or his girlfriend, whatever it was. And they said, I'm calling the cops. He got in his car and drove and sped off. And in the process of speeding off, and we don't even know whether he was drunk or high or whatever, but he left and he ran all those people over. That wasn't planned. And the same exact thing applies to even this Ramos guy. He didn't plan on going into the school and shooting the school up. That wasn't planned. He was chased into the school after killing his grandmother. You see? Or I can't say that. Maybe it was planned, but I'm saying he got chased into the school. Chased into the school. That's not where there was a phone call or text message was made to 911, and then they showed up because he was already in the school shooting people. And so that's another thing that we got to talk about. The Democrats, they want to create all these red flag laws, which to me are bullshit. Take the guns away. Actually, and the crazy thing is, it was actually Trump that co-signed the red flag laws. Take the guns away, and then we'll deal with due process later. But I'm saying the Buffalo shooter was examined and released. Darrell Brooks was arrested and released. You see? So there's a pattern of these people, somebody saying, these motherfuckers are off, and they just fall through the cracks. So people have to examine that aspect of the system that nobody wants to do. They fall right through the cracks. But anyway, I don't really have much else more to say about this topic. The money could be there if people really wanted it to be, to harden these schools. The stupid thing is you're going to have, even white people, especially the suburban white women. Oh, they're going to be up there. We don't want metal detectors in our schools because it sends the wrong message to children. Look, bitch, you can either put metal detectors in the schools and armed security in the schools, or we can continue to keep dealing with this. Because the whole banning guns, that's off the table. That's off the table. Because motherfuckers that have guns ain't giving up shit. Especially right now with all the political division and the way that people think and people looking at it and with serious suspicion and thinking to themselves, oh, this is just a backdoor way of disarming us and creating a situation where, we're all, fucked up, and we're defenseless. And then the government comes in with more ridiculousness. So, underneath of that, that's not gonna pass. It's just not gonna pass. There is going to be no ratification of the Constitution to eliminate the Second Amendment, no matter how much of a fantasy that is to the people on the left. And vilifying and claiming that all the people that want to exercise their Second Amendment rights to defend themselves, they're all monsters. That's not going to fly either. Because they try that crap too. Oh, well, look at these precious children, and if you want to exercise and carry a firearm, there's something wrong with you. And meanwhile, we see the rise in crime all around America because they let the bottom fall out with the COVID and all that other shit, all the COVID restrictions. Freaking, like I said before, mass shootings, as tragic as they are when they happen, they're a drop in the bucket when it comes to all the violence that is taking place out here. The majority of the gun violence in America is black on black crime in the inner cities where people have been generationally impoverished for a very long time. That's where the majority of the violence is. That's where you're going to get carjacked and home invaded and robbed and all that other shit. And while you're sitting there, especially black people, while you're sitting there worried about what's going on in these white suburbs, when somebody goes off and shoots up a school, you talking about leaving yourself defenseless in your own communities against your own people. Again, these are two distinctly unique problems. What white people are experiencing, or even Latino people, because I saw a lot of Latino people at this school, they just happen to have a deranged, Hispanic male. You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying, that doesn't have anything to do with the inner city. They're two completely different problems. And watch, I guarantee you, when I said this before, black people gonna get caught lacking again. Because with this type of shit going on, I bet you there's a white supremacist out there thinking to himself, yeah, I need to go and shoot up an inner city black school. Right? That's what they're going to say. They're going to go, I'm going to shoot up an inner city black school since nobody has done it yet. There's black people right now. Don't be putting hex on me. Don't be putting hex on me. Don't put mouth on me. The Jamaicans. Don't be putting mouth on my community. No, I'm just saying it's the reality. Since black people don't believe in preemptively doing anything, you all wait until shit happens, and then you want to talk about gun rights and concealed carry and all that shit. But for the last freaking 10 some odd years of me sitting here and saying to you, black people need to defend themselves, you all don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's nuts to me. I'm like, I've been saying y'all need to be vigilant. I was listening to Black Authorities video. It said the same shit. All the oh, y'all too pro blackity black. Oh, y'all always talking about race. What's up with you and all these guns? You's a Republican. We don't need any guns. We need gun control in the black community because there's just so many gangs. Right? Then the white boy comes in there, shoots the fucking place up. Pete, what gun should I buy? Pete, where do I get a non-resident permit because the state of New York won't let me protect myself? I'm like, but your dumb ass keeps voting Democrat. That's what you voted for. You voted to be in Lackatopolis. You steady lacking. You voted for that shit. Right? Again, gun laws do not stop illegal guns. And that's what you got to deal with. These illegal guns. And the other stupid thing, people talking about, background checks. We need background checks. What type of background do you think you're going to get on an 18-year-old? He hasn't lived long enough for there to be any sort of background for you to examine, unless he has mental health issues. And if you don't have a robust system to be able to catch people who have mental health issues, which, again, why don't you create a bill on that shit, right, to connect people's mental health issues, with firearms and stuff. But people will oppose that because they'll talk about HIPAA and privacy and whatnot. But I'm saying, if somebody's really making some disturbing statements like that freaking Buffalo shooter, he said he wanted to shoot people, he wanted to go on a mass shooting before it happened. He said that to me should not be protected by HIPAA. And technically speaking, it's not. You can notify, but I'm saying it's not connected to, if he walks into a gun shop, they go, oh, I know who you are. It's not connected to, the NICS check. It's not connected to that. He made this statement, and then a notification goes to NICS, and then they say, okay, well, you made this statement. We're going to put a hold on your shit, or we're going to stop you from being able to purchase because you made this statement. That's why people got to be careful about what they say on social media. You see? But again, in my opinion, since nobody wants to have a real honest conversation, everything's about agendas, disarming the population, right? This hot or cold bullshit, no compromise. This isn't going to change. Harden the fucking schools. Point blank, period. Harden the schools. And I'll tell you what's going to happen. The person just going to shift and go to, something else, movie theater or something like that. So shit'll jump around. Shit needs to be hardened. You have a country where people have access to firepower. Shit needs to be hardened. And irony is once it's hardened, and then you basically an armed nation of security guards all over the fucking place, then maybe, just maybe, you could possibly entertain a conversation about, do you really need a firearm? Do you really need one? You know what I'm saying? I'm still going to feel like I need one, and plain and simple. Because I know that realistically, you're not going to see that. But I'm saying, at the very least, you're not going to see like armed security just everywhere you go. But I'm saying the schools is something that could be fixed. That could be corrected. Right? Every public school has rules and regulations and government funding and everything else like that. So the schools can be dealt with. The schools can be hardened. And I don't know what the opposition is if everybody wants to claim that their children are so precious to them. Okay, well, demand a bill that hardens the schools, and you want every school to have an armed officer in front of the school with a goddamn rifle. And he needs to be wearing body armor as well. And there probably needs to be more than one officer, probably two. Because if the criminal gets a lucky shot on the officer, well, there goes your defenses are down. That's what people need to talk about. Because I'm telling you, that whole, we're going to ban all these guns and everything, it's off the table. Unless you want the country to break out in the Civil War. But anyway, that's all I got to say. That's my video. SWP out.